We're really honoured because we have the man of the moment here, Jason Eisener, the director of Hobo With A Shotgun. Let's run through a few pointers about the movie. I mean, take us from the whole Grindhouse trailer competition and exactly what happened from that.
Yeah, Rob Rodriguez and South by Southwest teamed up to put on a trailer contest to go with the release of Grindhouse, and they had Eli Roth and Rob Zombie and Edgar Wright make fake trailers that went in between those two films, and they decided to make a contest to put out to filmmakers all over the world and give them the opportunity to make their own fake trailer for an exploitation film. So as soon as we heard about the contest, we jumped right on it. We thought it was perfect for us, and we went out and shot for 5 days and edited for 5 days, and we made a little trailer with like $120, shot it on mini DV, and we sent our trailer off, and we ended up winning the contest. And while we were at the Grindhouse premiere in LA, we got a call from Alliance Films, who wanted to distribute our trailer along with the release of Grindhouse in Canada. So they struck around 200 film prints, and they also wanted to talk about the idea of making a feature film. So that's kind of like how it started. We flew up to Toronto, met a producer by the name of Neve Fitchman, who we really hit it off with, and he just sent us home to bang out a treatment and then get the script made, and we just worked on it and tried and spent probably 2 years raising the money to make the film.
So did you win money for the trailer?
No.
So basically that just went in, that was just like a calling card.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It was just, it just spread awareness as to who we were.
Now was this pre-Treevenge or post-Treevenge?
This was pre-Treevenge, and while we were developing the script for Hobo, we decided to make a 15-minute short film and show people that we're not just a one-trick pony and that we could handle a narrative story. Because that trailer, like, it's fun and all, but it doesn't really like show what we can do as filmmakers. So I think Treevenge really helped us to get backing to make the feature film.
The title, where did that come from? I mean, you're steeped in sort of 70s and 80s exploitation.
Yes, I love, I'm a big fan of high concept ideas, and I love high concept titles. And it was me and the writer, who's my best friend, and we were hanging out with my buddy Mojo, who at the time was looking kind of like a hobo. He had really long hair, and he bought an airsoft shotgun, which shoots little pellets. And me and John were pitching ideas back and forth for movies, and then Mojo speaks up and says, "You should make a movie about me." And John just looked him up and down and said, "What, a hobo with a shotgun?" And then it was like a light bulb went off, and we all just kind of like sat back and were like, "Whoa, that's a really cool title. All right, what the hell can that movie be about?" And then we just started pitching ideas right there, and kind of kept it on the shelf for about a year and a half before that contest came about.
Now, I know that Dead End Drive-In was one of your major inspirations. I mean, why that film, and what about it specifically? The whole punk sort of sensibility, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's definitely a huge inspiration. I'm a huge fan of high concept ideas, and Brian Churchill-Smith just has this way of like, I don't know, I think like he makes his films like almost from like a kid's perspective in him, and I find his movies just to be, they're so fun and full of energy, and they're just so vibrant and colorful, and like from the production design to the costumes, even the characters are just so interesting, and that film with like its look and its soundtrack and just the overall package and the world he created, he like just created this like insane over-the-top world that I just love.
And I asked you the other day, and I mean, just for me, the first 5 minutes almost sort of like suggests that it's set in the future. I mean, is that something you actually wanted to put across, or was it like an alternate universe? How did you sort of pitch that to people?
I didn't really have to pitch that. I guess that just comes from our love of high concept cinema and growing up in the in the 80s and being exposed to high concept ideas since we were watching Saturday morning cartoons as little kids. I find the movie kind of like, it starts like off in the 70s and then just like really quickly dives into the 80s. And I don't know, maybe that's just because that's what we know. I do love 70s cinema, and I think there's probably people out there who think that it's going to be more of a 70s film. Because of that original trailer, it kind of feels like it's more in the 70s world. But I think just because of the nature of the time we were born, it was just natural that our movie was just going to quickly dive into the 80s.
Why I like the film so much is because, I mean, I'm not going to slag off Machete because I like Machete, but Machete's a bit too knowing about what it's doing. And I found your film to be like the balance between like being really something quite pure as an homage, but winking slightly to the audience. Do you know what I mean? So it was like that perfect. Whereas I thought Machete overdid the sort of like the parody side.
No, I appreciate that, because that was rule number one for us. We did not want to parody the genre. We didn't want there to be missing reels or the scratches of like the Grindhouse effect or boom shots popping into frame. We didn't want any of that stuff. I feel like those sort of gimmicks should be left for like the spoof movies, like Scary Movie. Like if they're gonna spoof like Grindhouse cinema, then those are the kind of things that they would do. They would have like the missing reels and boom pulls and being really, really self-aware of the genre, which, I don't know, we had the budget and the crew and the mentality just to make one of those films. Like we just wanted to make an exploitation film, and so I think because of the limitations we had and just our inspirations with those kinds of...
and what was the reality of actually directing, say, one of your heroes?
Oh man, I was so nervous. Like especially when I had that first conversation with him, I couldn't even eat my lunch that day. But what I discovered, he has this television show in the Netherlands called Film Factory, where he helps produce young filmmakers' first short films. And so I watched that show and I saw how like patient and how giving he was to the filmmakers on those sets. But I didn't know if it's a TV show, and I didn't know if he was putting on a show. But once he came to Nova Scotia and started working with us, he was totally that person that I saw on the screen. He's just so giving, and he loves working with young energy, and so he feeds off that.
You were never going to film it anywhere else. It was always going to be your home.
Well, there was some push to shoot it in Toronto, but it was very important for me to have my friends and the crew I've used back home before to work on our first film.
It gives it a very different sort of like feel, actually, doesn't it? Because you're trying to think, well, that's probably where I get the futuristic side from, because I haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, about the look, I mean, it is exceptional. I mean, Kareem Hussein did an amazing job on this. It's almost like electric to look at. I mean, was that a hard look for him to sort of achieve?
No, it just comes really natural with Kareem, and he's always wanted to do that look, but no one's allowed him to do it before. And when he jumped on Hobo and I said I really want it to be colorful, his eyes just lit up and he was so excited. He was excited enough to come to Nova Scotia and live with us for 3 months prior to shooting the film. He didn't even know if the film was going to be greenlit, but he was just so excited and wanted to come and support us and help us develop the film, which was like an amazing pleasure to have him there with us, because me and him would just go to the locations every single day, and we would look at as to where we're going to put our lights and what color palettes we were going to use for every scene. And so when it came time to actually shooting the film, I never had to give him any direction, because we already knew what the game plan was before we went in there. So I got to concentrate on dealing with my actors and my crew and where to put my camera.
No, it's the look, I think, that gets you straight into the movie. I mean, the moment it starts, you're going, wow. And it's almost like an acid trip that starts off. No, seriously, it is, isn't it? It's like that. And of course, your use of music, which I absolutely love. We come from the same areas as what you've used. I mean,
absolutely.
So let's talk about that. I mean, the Sortolani connection. I mean, you've got Simon Boswell.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Why those specific cuts?
Like, I'm a huge fan of soundtracks, and even before we went into production on Hobo, I remember developing a soundtrack for the movie before we even had a script. It was just to help inspire ideas. And some of those songs actually like made its way into the film, like the opening theme song from Mark of the Devil. That was always my first track, and I started cutting the opening of the film, and I wasn't using that song. I had used another song, and we couldn't get the rights to it, and then I just naturally just went back to that other song, and it just worked so perfectly. And with doing, like, I love like John Carpenter as well too. He's one of my favorite composers, and there's like, Hobo kind of has like a mix of like different genres, and so I had 4 composers work on the movie, and each one had like kind of a speciality and a different genre. And whenever I felt the movie was like going into like a giallo sort of feel, I would give it to my buddy Ron Graham, who he has a band called Giallo's Flame, and he would handle those moments. And then when I felt like the movie kind of had a John Carpenter vibe or like a synth vibe, I would hand that over to my buddy Adam Burke.
I know Simon Boswell came to Sundance.
Yes, he did.
On your invitation, and he was actually quite blown away.
Oh man, it was so amazing, because he at the time I put his song "Naked and the Dead" in a scene in the movie, and I thought it was just going to be my temp song. And I sent the scene over to Kareem to check it out and give me notes, and he's like, wow, you're using Simon Boswell. Like, I'm actually working on a film with him right now. I'll ask him if we can use it. And Simon saw the trailer to the film, and he was so excited, and he gave us permission to use the song. And I was nervous about him coming to Sundance because he had never seen the scene. And he was so excited. I sat right beside him during the screening, and he was just like a little kid watching the movie. And it was just such a pleasure, and he was so grateful to us for allowing for us putting his song into the movie, which is quite amazing.
Now let's talk about the gore, the blood. I mean, it's a really full-on experience. I mean, you really go for it, don't you? I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, obviously intentionally, because you're again an echo from the exploitation classics.
One of the inspirations is definitely Riccio. I don't know. Have you seen Riccio? Which it's an okay film, but the violence in that movie is just so over the top and so wonderful to watch. That was definitely a huge inspiration. Other films, like I can't help but be inspired by Peter Jackson and Bad Taste, and that being his first film, and it was so gore heavy. I don't know. I've always been inspired by him and Sam Raimi growing up.
Great use of ice skates. We've never seen ice skates being used quite like that before.
Yes. It's a weird connection with that. The original idea of the ice skates was an inspiration from a Canadian slasher film called Curtains. And
the lesbian one. I remember that.
And there's that scene where the killer is on the ice with his skates, and he's wearing the old lady mask. And originally, in the first draft of the script, I had the character Ivan, who's wearing hockey skates, storm into the apartment that the hobo's in, wearing that old lady mask. But that's just kind of like, I don't know. It's really what we did with skates is nothing like Curtains, but sometimes little things like that in movies just kind of spark other ideas for you. Yeah.
No, I mean it played in Sundance. I mean. This FrightFest screenings, it's like its third showing.
Yes.
I mean, what is it like? I mean, was the Sundance reaction absolutely amazing?
Yes, when we went to Sundance, there was so much hype about the movie, and I was so nervous because I thought there's no way we were going to live up to the expectations. And like with the original trailer, we don't really say necessarily what the film is about, so people are building up all their own ideas as to what the movie could be about. Same with the trailer for the feature film we made. It's just a speech with Rugger talking to these babies, and then it just cuts to madness. So you really have no idea what the film is about. So I was really worried as to what people were thinking and what they thought the film was going to be like. But when we started rolling the film, and the audience was just ecstatic right from the get-go, and the energy in the theater just kept getting higher and higher, and it was such an amazing experience. I honestly thought the film was going to divide the audience 50-50. I expected 50% of the audience to get up and walk out of the movie. Been really exciting watching the film with a large audience, and I've been sitting in the screenings here at FrightFest and just feeling the vibe of the audience, and they're so awesome. I'm pretty excited to see how they're going to take Hobo.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's a tough act to follow. How are you going to do it?
And the next film?
Yeah.
We're just going to step it up. We just have to step our game up, and that's the plan. We're going to make a pretty insane film coming up.
Well, make sure you bring it back to FrightFest, please.
Absolutely, I would love to.
All right, you've been a great guest.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming over.